Hi everyone, and welcome to our video lesson on 3-4, equations of lines. This is another review lesson, which is really good for us to review equations of lines because it comes up so often in many math classes, and here again in geometry because we do study lines here in geometry. So there's three equations of lines. The first one we're going to talk about is slope-intercept form. That's where we have the slope, m, and we have the y-intercept, or where it crosses the y-axis, and that's b. So x and y, this represents every ordered pair on the line. And then m is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. I'm sure you've heard that many times before. For point slope form, point slope is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. Where again m is the slope, x1, y1 is a specific ordered pair on the line. So a line is made up with an infinite number of points because the line goes on forever. And so this ordered pair right there, maybe it's 5, 3. I don't know what it is. Let's just say it's 5, 3. 5 is the x coordinate. 3 is the y coordinate. Now there is an infinite number of other points on the line. This point, this point, this point, this point, this point, this point. All those points are represented by x, y. So we don't put numbers into x, y. We only substitute numbers into x1 and y1. And then our standard form is ax plus by equals c. So what you got to remember here for standard form is you got to get the x's and y's on the left side, your constants on the right side. And remember that this a, b, and c, these are going to be numbers. They all have to be integers. That means that you can't have any fractions or decimals in front of your variables a and b. Not only that, but the GCF must be 1. That means you can never have like 4x plus 8y equals 6. That GCF is not 1. You could take a 2 out of all of those, so you'd reduce it to 2x plus 4y equals 3. Okay, so the GCF always has to be 1. And the last thing is your coefficient in front of x, so your a value must be positive. A must be positive. Please write these three things down in your notes. These are three big things for standard form. The coefficients must all be integers, the GCF has to be 1, and a must be positive. And you'll see that here in these few problems that we're going to do together. So here's our first one. We want to come up with an equation of a line that has a slope of a negative 3/2 and it goes through 6, 8. So we're going to have three different answers. We're going to have point slope, slope intercept, and standard. So here's our point slope form. Our point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. So it's going to be y minus the y coordinate of the point. The y coordinate of the point is 8. So it's y minus 8. That equals our slope, which is a negative 3/2, times the quantity x minus the x coordinate, and the x coordinate is 6. So this, everybody, is one of your answers. This is the answer for point slope form. We use point slope form when we have a point and when we have the slope. Isn't that something? When you have a point and a slope, you use point slope form. Now we're going to change this into slope intercept form. The way I explain when we change point slope into slope intercept form is it's a two-step process. You first distribute to get rid of the parentheses, and then you got to get y all by itself. That's the second step. So let's first distribute. After we distribute, we still have y minus 8 on the left side. That equals a negative 3/2 x, and then a negative times negative is a positive, and then 3/2 times 6. 3/2 times 6 over 1. That is 18/2, and 18/2 is the same thing as 9. And then the second part, to get it into y equals mx plus b form, you got to get y all by itself, so we're going to add 8 to both sides. Add 8. So our second answer in y equals mx plus b form, y equals a negative 3/2 x plus 17. That is our slope-intercept form. So now we have to do one more form, and that's standard form. So for standard form, we got to get our x's and y's on the same side. So this minus 3 halves x, I have to add 3 halves x to get it to the other side. So after I do that, I get 3 halves x plus a y equals 17. Now we have to remember our 3 rules. Your a has to be positive, so 3 halves, it is positive, so that's good. We can't have any fractions or decimals. They all have to be integer coefficients, not fractions. So we got to multiply everything by 2, because we have a denominator of 2. So 3 halves times 2, these 2's cancel out, and you just get 3x. 2 times y is 2y, and 2 times 17 is 34. This is your third answer. This is standard form. So on your next test, you need to be able to go through all 3 steps. First put in the point slope, and then slope intercept, and then standard. Let's practice this again. Here we have a slope of 2, so m equals 2, and it goes to the point 0, negative 3. So if that's the case, we have a point and we have a slope, so we're going to put it into point slope form. Y minus y1, so y minus a minus 3. That equals our m, which is 2, times the quantity x minus the x coordinate, which is 0. So now y minus a minus 3 is y plus 3, and this is our first answer. If you didn't want to put this as 0 here, you wouldn't have to, because obviously x minus 0 is just x, so that wouldn't have to be there. So there's point slope. Slope-intercept form is a 2-step process. You first distribute, and then you get rid of that 3. So we'll distribute first, y plus 3, that equals 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 0 is just 0, and we don't even have to write it. So now the second step to get y equals mx plus b form, subtract 3, subtract 3. So then we get y equals 2x minus 3. Here's our second answer. That's y equals mx plus b, or slope-intercept form. Our last form is standard form. We have to subtract 2x. So we get a negative 2x plus y equals a negative 3. So it's good that we have x and y on the same side, but right now we have a negative in front of our a value. Our a value always has to be positive. The coefficient in front of x must be positive. So all we got to do is multiply everything by a negative 1, and it changes the signs of every term in our equation. So a negative 1 times a negative 2 is a positive 2x. A negative 1 times y is a negative y. And a negative 1 times a negative 3 is a positive 3. This, now everybody, is our answer for standard form. All right. Next question. It says write the equation of a line that passes through these 2 points at negative 2, negative 2, 5, and 4, 9. Well, stink bomb, in order to write the equation of a line, I need a point, which I have 2 of them, and I need slope. I don't have the slope. What am I going to do if I don't have the slope? By golly, I'm going to find the slope. Am I right? We can find the slope by doing m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's find the slope so we can put it into point slope form. Here we go. M equals 9 subtract 5 over 4 subtract a negative 2. The slope of this line is 4/6, which is 2/3. Now I have a point and I have slope. Or you could do this point with this slope. It doesn't matter, you're going to get the right answer either way if you do it correctly. So we could pick either of these 2 points, negative 2, 5 or 4, 9. I'll just do this first one, it really doesn't matter. So negative 2, 5 is my point, and my slope we found to be 2/3. Alright, putting into point slope form, y minus the y coordinate. 5 is the y coordinate. That equals our m, which we found to be 2/3, times the quantity x minus the x coordinate. X minus a minus 2 is x plus 2. There's 1 point on your next chapter test. The next point on your chapter test is to put it into slope-intercept form. So let's distribute this sucker. Y minus 5 equals 2/3 x. 2/3 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3 is 4/3. Now we're going to add 5 to get into slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. 2/3 x plus 4/3 plus 5 is the same thing as 4/3 plus 15/3. And 4/3 plus 15/3 is 19/3. There is your answer in slope-intercept form. So that's another point on your next chapter. Now we're going to put it into standard form. So to put it into standard form, we're going to subtract 2/3 x, because we got to get x's and y's on the same side, minus 2/3 x plus a y equals 19/3. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything by 3, because we got to get rid of the denominator. All of our coefficients must be integers. So 3 cancels with this 3, and you just get a negative 2x. And then 3 times y is 3y. And 3 times 19/3, the 3 cancels with this 3, and you just get 19. Last step, you cannot, I repeat, you cannot have a negative sign in front of your x. Your a must be positive, so multiply everything by a negative 1. So then we get a positive 2x, a negative 3y equals a negative 19. Alright, last one. This one, right, the equation of a line passing through a negative 2, negative 5 that is perpendicular. This symbol right here means perpendicular. It's perpendicular to the equation y minus 8 equals 4/7 x plus 513. Alright, in order to write the equation of a line, I need a point, which I have, and I need a slope, because then you can put it into point-slope form. So what is my slope? My slope is perpendicular to this line. So what is the slope of that line? The slope is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. Your slope is this 4/7 right here, right? So if the slope is 4/7, what is the perpendicular slope? The perpendicular slope is a negative 7/4. You switch the fraction around and you change the sign. Now everybody, we have all the information we need. We have a point and we have a slope. Let's put it into point-slope form. Y minus a minus 5, so y plus 5. That equals our m, which is a negative 7/4, times the quantity x minus the x coordinate. X minus a minus 2 is x plus 2. There's one answer. There is point-slope form. Let's get this thing into slope-intercept form. Here we go. We're going to distribute. So y plus 5, that equals a negative 7/4 times x is a negative 7/4 x. A negative 7/4 times 2. Numerator times numerator is a negative 14. Denominator times denominator, 4 times 1 is 4. And 14/4 is the same thing as 7/2. So minus 7/2. And then to get this thing in y equals mx plus b form, to get y all by itself, 5, we're getting rid of u by subtracting u. So then we have y equals a negative 7/4 x. We have a negative 7/2, and we're subtracting 5, which is like a negative 7/2 subtracting 10/2. So if a negative 7/2 subtracting 10/2, you get a negative 17/2. Okay, doing good. This is slope-intercept form. So now we got to get this thing into standard form. So to get it into standard form, let's add the 7/4 x. So x's come first, 7/4 x, y's come next, constants are on the other side of the equation. So we finish this off by saying we have to have all integer coefficients. Right now we have fractional coefficients. Let's get rid of the fraction. So we're going to multiply by the least common multiple of the denominators. So 2 is one denominator, 4 is one denominator. They both go into the number 4. So we're going to multiply every term by 4. 4 times 7 fourths, these 4's cancel, and you just get 7x. 4 times y is 4y. And 4 times 17 halves, the 4 halves can reduce to 2 over 1. So then 2 times a negative 17 is a negative 34. And this is the answer for standard form for that information. Let me know if you have any questions when you get to class tomorrow.